Today's lesson is on solving two-step equations. We previously solved one-step equations. We are now moving into two-step equations. So the fact that it's two-step equations, there are going to be two things that need to be undone. And like most things in math, the order that you do things in, or in this case, the order that you undo things in, is important. So when you are solving an equation, the operations must be undone in the reverse order that they were completed. When solving equations, operations have to be undone in the reverse order they were completed. If you have me in class, you've actually already heard this analogy, but I'm going to tell it again. When you get yourself dressed, when you put your shoes and socks on, I think we can all agree that you have to put your socks on first, and then you have to put your shoes on. If you are going to undo those actions, if you want to cancel those actions out and get back to how you started, the first thing you have to undo is your shoes. You have to take your shoes off first and then your socks. So notice you are undoing those steps in the reverse order that you completed them. First you put your socks on, then you put your shoes on. If you're going to undo that, first you undo your shoes and then you undo your socks. Exactly the same thing works with solving equations. Operations have to be undone in the reverse order that they were initially completed. So let's take a look at some examples. There probably should be directions on here. There are not. Each of these say solve. So find the solution. We are trying to find the value of the variable that makes the equation true. Solve, and that is the directions for at least the first 6 or so of these. So we are given here in part A, 3x minus 2 equals 4. 3x minus 2 equals 4. So you want to think about what's happening with x here. Well, it looks like we've got some subtraction, and then also 3x, we've got some multiplication. So you need to think about in what order are those things happening. Do I multiply first and then subtract? Or do I subtract first and then I multiply? We have talked about the order of operations. We complete parentheses first and then exponents, and then we multiply or divide from left to right, and then I add or subtract from left to right. So the first thing that happened here is the multiplication. We multiply before we subtract. So if I am undoing these steps, I'm undoing things when I solve. I undo them in reverse order. So the first thing I need to undo is this subtraction here. I would be in the habit of drawing that vertical line straight down through the equal sign. That way we make sure anything I do on one side of the equation, I do on the other side of the equation as well. We said the first thing we need to undo is the subtraction. I undo subtracting 2 by adding 2 to both sides. Minus 2 plus 2 cancels out. I bring my 3x down. I bring my equal sign down. 4 plus 2 is 6. And now I'm down to a one-step equation. I've completed one step. I need to undo this multiplication here. I undo multiplication by dividing both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. That cancels. I just get x equals 2. X equals 2 is our solution. As always, we can check it. If I plug in 2 for x, I have 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 2 does give me 4. My solution checks. Part B, again, we were asked to solve. It says negative b plus 6 equals negative 11. Negative b plus 6 equals 11. It might be helpful, this negative sign, if you ever just see a negative in front of a variable. Sometimes it's helpful to change it to a negative 1. I'm going to do that here. Negative 1b plus 6 equals negative 11. Make sure your b and your 6 don't look like each other. Like we did over here, the last thing that happened was this addition. We added 6 at the end, so the first thing I need to undo is that plus 6. I undo plus 6 by subtracting 6 from both sides. 6 minus 6 cancels. I get negative 1b equals negative 11 minus 6 is negative 17. Negative 1 times b, so I need to undo that multiplication, which I can undo by dividing both sides by negative 1. And I get b equals negative divided by negative is positive, 17 divided by 1 is 17. B equals 17 for part B. Part C says 12 equals negative 3k plus 3. 12 equals negative 3k plus 3. So I've got k, we multiply times negative 3 first, and then we add 3. The last thing that happened to the k was we added 3, so that's the first thing we need to undo. We undo adding 3 by subtracting 3 on both sides. Negative 3k comes down. The equal sign comes down. 12 minus 3 is 9. Negative 3k means negative 3 times k. We undo multiplication with division. Positive divided by negative is negative. 9 divided by 3 is 3. K equals negative 3. And you can certainly leave it as negative 3 equals k. Those are the same thing. Part D. Part D says 4 minus 2y equals 11. 4 minus 2y is equal to 11. First thing, we cannot combine this 4 minus 2 and make that 2y. I see students try to do that a decent amount. The reason for that, I don't have like terms. This 4 doesn't have a y on it, and the 2 does. So those are not like terms. Same reason we can't combine those. I think it's tempting to here because the numbers are next to each other. But really, it's negative 2 times y. And then I'm adding 4. So I've got negative 2y and then adding 4. So the last thing that happened was this positive 4, this adding 4, which I get rid of by subtracting 4 from both sides. And I am subtracting 4, even though this minus sign, remember that minus sign is connected to the 2y. The 4 is positive. These cancel, I bring down my minus 2y. 11 minus 4 is 7. Like this problem over here, this is multiplication, which I can undo by dividing. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 cancels. Also, make sure you bring down your negative sign. I see a lot of students forget to bring that minus sign down there. So we are dividing both sides by negative 2. And I get y equals positive divided by negative is negative. 7 divided by 2, it doesn't come out even. We can't simplify it. There's nothing I can divide 7 and 2 both by other than 1. So I just leave it as negative 7 over 2. Y equals negative 7 over 2 is correct. Part E. Part E says negative 1/5 t minus 2 equals 4. Negative 1/5 t minus 2 equals 4. So hopefully we're in the habit of seeing I've got multiplication and then subtraction, so I need to undo this subtraction. I can undo minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides. Minus 2 plus 2, I can cancel those. This negative 1/5 t can come down. And 4 plus 2 gives me 6. From here, this is negative 1/5 times t. Negative 1/5 times t. We undo multiplication with division. Negative 1/5 divided by negative 1/5, those cancel. So I get t equals 6 divided by negative 1/5. And we've been working the last couple class periods on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and in this case, dividing fractions. 6 divided by negative 1/5, we keep, change from division to multiplication, flip, instead of 5 or negative 1 over 5, it is now 5 divided by negative 1. Now I realize this negative sign is just out front here. If a number's negative, you can make the numerator negative, you can make the denominator negative, you can just leave the negative out front, but you can't have the numerator and denominator both be negative, because negative 1 divided by negative 5, negative divided by negative would be positive. So I put my minus sign on the top, which then gets flipped to the bottom. But if you put it with the 5 or just left it out front, either one's fine. 6 times 5 is 30. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 30 divided by negative 1 gives me t equals negative 30. Part F. Part F says x divided by 9 minus 15 equals 12. X over 9 minus 15 equals 12. Last thing that happened in our equation was minus 15. I undo minus 15 by adding 15 to both sides. 12 and 15 make 27. Want to think about what is happening to our x. We are dividing by 9. We undo division with multiplication. We're going to multiply both sides by 9. So I get x equals 27 times 9. 27 times 9. 9 times 7 is 63. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 6 is 24. X equals 243. Two more and then one problem that's a little bit different. Part G, 8 minus 3y equals 14. 8 minus 3y equals 14. Did a similar problem a little bit ago. Remember, even though the y comes second here, this is negative 3 times y and then plus 8. So we need to undo that plus 8. I bring down my minus 3y. 14 minus 8 is 6. This is multiplication, which I can undo with division. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. And part H, it looks scary because of the fractions. But we do it the same way we do any other equation. I've got x times 2/5 minus 3. X times 2/5 minus 3. I need to undo that minus 3. Add 3 to both sides. 1/2 plus 3. 1/2 plus 3. That's 3.5. Here I have multiplication, 2/5 times x. I cancel multiplication by dividing. Divide both sides by 2/5. And now I'm dividing fractions. To divide by a fraction, first of all, we want to change any mixed numbers. 3.5, we do 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 3.5 is the same thing as 7 over 2. So I have 7 over 2 divided by 2/5. And to divide by a fraction, I keep, change to multiplication, flip. Instead of 2 over 5, it's 5 over 2. To multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. 7 times 5 is 35. 2 times 2 is 4. I get x equals 35 over 4. 35 divided by 4 does not come out even. There's nothing I can divide them both by. That is our answer. And then the last problem, it's a little different one. It's a pretty common one that you will certainly see on an algebra test or a quiz. It gives you an equation, and it gives you not only the possible solution, but it gives you some work here. And then it asks, what is the error, to explain the error in the work. Sometimes you'll be asked to fix the error as well. So I want you to look at that, maybe copy it in your notes there. See if you can come up with where the mistake is. Looks like to get from 14 to 8, they subtracted 6. Minus 6 here, minus 6 here. Those canceled. There's my equal sign. 14 minus 6 does give me 8. Here they divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 does give me 4. But I mentioned it before, this minus sign needs to come down, which means on this step, they should have divided both sides by -2. So I get p equals -4. So as far as answering a question like this, sometimes it asks you which step. It'll call this step 1, and this step 2, and this step 3. It'll ask you which step is the error in. This one just asks what is the error. I would state that the student did not bring down the minus sign on step 2. He or she should have divided by -2. To get p equals -4. That is all we have for today's notes. I will see you next time.